Australia, one of the best surf destinations on the planet, with every type of wave you could ever hope to surf. From the famous right-hand points in Queensland to the deadly south coast slabs of New South Wales. From Noosa to Nalu, Australia has waves for everyone. However, underneath its surf culture, Australia has a dark and deadly aspect to it.
A man is fighting for life in a critical condition after being attacked by a shark at a popular beach on the New South Wales mid-north coast.
Lucky to be alive after surviving a terrifying shark attack off Albany. The surfer has saved his own life after being attacked by a great white shark.
A desperate search has so far uncovered a damaged surfboard, and there is no sign of the much-loved victim.
Now, along the coast of New South Wales, there are hundreds and hundreds of different surf spots. Famous waves like the Pass in Byron Bay or Lennox Head just down the coast, but it's also tremendously sharky. Most famously, and perhaps shockingly, on July the 23rd, 2024, professional surfer Kai McKenzie lost his leg after being attacked by a shark while surfing near Port Macquarie. And in this particular incident, it was an off-duty police officer that used his dog lead as a tourniquet, which may have even saved his life. Byron Bay and Port Macquarie, Coffs Harbour, basically anywhere you go surfing in New South Wales, there's going to be sharks. Particularly in the northern half of New South Wales, because there you get warmer water sharks that come down from the north and colder water sharks that come up from the south, like great whites coming from the south and sort of bull sharks, tiger sharks from the north. So you kind of have that mix right on that easterly point of New South Wales. You know, most notoriously you've got Ballina, which is one of the beaches most responsible for attacks in Australia. Probably the sharkiest place in New South Wales. You know, for just one beach to have that many attacks is pretty crazy. I've surfed there once and just didn't enjoy it at all, because I guess it's all in your head, but it just has that reputation. You've got the river mouth right there, you just know in your head how sharky it is, how many attacks have occurred there. I'm sure a lot of you guys surf it like fairly regularly, but I guess it always has that sort of feel to it. Like, let me know if you live there. So there are several contributing factors as to why New South Wales is so sharky. The first is climate. So New South Wales has a long, temperate coastline that's perfect for both humans and sharks. Waters are rich in fish and marine life, and the warm East Australian current brings tropical species, including sharks, down south. And there's lots of estuaries and river mouths in the area, which attract bait fish and therefore attract sharks. So out of all of the Australian states, New South Wales has the highest population, most of which live by the coast. That said, New South Wales has some of the most robust shark monitoring technology out there, and their system includes drum lines, drones, and shark tagging. So we know more about where sharks are, and that makes it seem like there are more around. So it's not necessarily that there are more sharks than in other places, it's just they're more monitored. And New South Wales, it's just a mix of perfect shark habitat, lots of people, and lots of tech to monitor sharks. We all know Queensland for its famous right-hand points of the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, you know, places like Snapper and the Superbank, Kira, Burleigh, Noosa Heads, you know, all those amazing waves. And while Queensland might not be as sharky as New South Wales, there are still a lot of sharks here. Tiger sharks and bull sharks are common here, especially in warmer tropical waters, whereas the Brisbane River and canals on the Goldie are all full of bull sharks. There was an attack back in 2023 that occurred at Greenmount Beach, which is actually part of the Superbank, and it's really unusual, this one, because obviously there's sharks present there, but it's so crowded and usually the water's fairly clear, so it's like the last place you're surfing and thinking of sharks. But a man was actually attacked and killed by a great white shark while surfing at Greenmount. So obviously notorious spots include the Gold Coast. You've got lots of surfers, there are sharks there, so they're always gonna meet each other at some point. Again, same thing with the Sunshine Coast, and then you're going up to like the Whitsundays, Fraser Island, which is not as well known for surfing. So Queensland has had a shark control program since the 60s. using drum lines and nets across 85 plus beaches from the Gold Coast to Cairns. So these shark nets don't eliminate the risk of sharks altogether. You know, sharks can just swim around them or swim under them, but it is proven to reduce shark encounters at popular beaches. So the coastline setup in Queensland also has a lot to do with why there haven't been that many attacks. You know, for much of the Queensland coast, you've got the barrier reef blocking much of the coast, so a lot of sharks are out there on the barrier reef, not near populated surfing areas. Like New South Wales obviously doesn't have that, and it has a lot of deep water directly behind the surf breaks. Now, WA has a serious rep when it comes to sharks. And there are world-class waves here, you know, Margaret River and the hundreds of breaks around there, famous spots like Main Break, the Box and North Point. And most recently, in the start of this year, there was actually a fatal attack that occurred down in Esperance. Now, there have been many attacks down in Esperance, and although it looks beautiful with fun waves and the most pristine beaches you've ever seen, it's just somewhere I've never been because it just sounds so sharky down there. Everywhere in Margaret River there's the risk of shark attacks, particularly in like the Gracetown area. So there's this sort of stretch of coast behind where like North Point is, and there's a few breaks down there, but it's so sharky there. It's known as Shark Highway locally. There's been some horrible stories that I've heard over the years there that I won't say here on YouTube, and it was actually this stretch of coast that was responsible for the WSL cancelling its Margaret River event a few years ago, and they actually moved it to Uluwatu in Bali. So WA's coastline is massive and way more rugged and remote than the East Coast, so with less human development it equals more natural shark habitat with undisturbed feeding grounds and fewer deterrents. Now, the whole southwest corner of WA is notorious for its great whites. It's got a huge great white population with cold, nutrient-rich waters full of seals, sea lions and whales. Great whites migrate through here, especially in cooler months. Also, WA doesn't use shark nets, so it did actually experiment with culling and drum lines after a spate of fatal attacks between 2010 and 2014, but it was hugely controversial and eventually stopped. So out of all the places I've surfed around the world, Margaret River is the only place where I've seen a shark while surfing and been sure it was a shark. So me and my friend just got off work. We drove to the beach that we sort of surf every day, our go-to beach, which is known for sharks, but it's a pretty popular beach and, you know, it's got really fun waves. So we just paddled out like we did most days, started surfing, caught a few waves. Then just during a bit of a lull, I was just sat out back waiting, and I sort of looked out to my left, sort of 10-20 meters out. I just saw a huge like triangle fin, like it was freaking massive, like sort of in and amongst this rip, and then just saw like the trailing like back fin, which is, if you've got two fins together like that, it's pretty certain that it's a shark. And also a shark fin's more triangular, whereas if it's a dolphin it's a bit more curved. So yeah, I was damn sure it was a shark. So I was like to my mate, I was like, Jack, shark. And so he turned around as well. I just caught like the next whitewater in and just paddled back in, and my heart was like pounding. And we got back to the beach and then just tried to see it, but didn't even see it again. And then just got out. So I was just, yeah, that was pretty spooky. And that particular spot has kind of a sharky feel to it, like a lot of spots in WA do. So South Australia is the great white capital of Australia, arguably the great white capital of the world. The waves here are no secret. Well, they are actually, but you know, we've all seen these remote slabby waves like out in the desert. There's some amazing waves here, but super remote and one of the sharkiest places in the world. There's been a few fatal attacks. Everything that I hear about South Oz just sounds so unappealing, just like dark, deep water, big, powerful, slabby waves, and yeah, just great whites. Ooh, gives me shivers. So there are a handful of like notorious spots, but just to sort of protect them a little bit because they are lesser known, I won't mention them here. The shark hotspots in South Oz occur around where seal colonies are, and deep, cold, nutrient-rich waters off the continental shelf help to attract sharks. Now, South Oz is also one of the shark diving capitals. If you want to go and see great whites up close, it's the place to do it. Obviously, from the safety of a cage, it's a bit more well, it's still scary, but less scary than surfing and seeing them. So there are fewer beach attacks. Unlike New South Wales or WA, most South Australians live inland or in Adelaide, and the surf culture isn't as big as in other states. It's also more sparsely populated, so where the best waves are, not that many people live there, if any. So although we obviously don't know the exact shark population, the attacks are much lower, even though there could be more sharks. It's just more remote and less people surfing. Now, Victoria is famous mostly for Bells Beach, the iconic right-hander, and its high-performance cousin, Winky. But there are hundreds of waves down in these parts. So while the statistics might not reflect it, there's definitely sharks around. There were no attacks reported in 2024, and overall there's very low shark bite stats compared to other states. Obviously, in terms of notorious spots, Bells Beach and around Torquay, Phillip Island, any of the main spots down there can be sharky. There's various types of sharks present in these waters, from great whites, seven gills, bronze whalers and gummy sharks, all cruising through Victorian waters. So Vic's coastal waters are often colder and murkier than in other states, which isn't ideal for either sharks or surfers. Sharks rely on sight and smell, but murky water can often lead to mistaken identity, especially around river mouths. So surfing in Victoria often feels a lot more ominous than actually sharky. With rugged cliffs, cold winds and grey water, sharks are definitely part of the ecosystem, but the water's cold, murky and less crowded, so they kind of keep a low profile. So I've actually got another story because I've spent a lot of time down in Victoria. And I mean, it's kind of a shark story, but I was surfing this break once and it's kind of like a sandbar break, so you have to paddle quite far to get out to it. So I rocked up, saw that there was like fun waves, but couldn't really see, so I was like, I'll just paddle out. It's a pretty long paddle. So I was just paddling, I was probably about halfway across, like right in the deepest bit of water. And obviously like sharks are on my mind because it's, yeah, deep, murky water and you know there are sharks around. But I was just paddling, like felt kind of horrible, but I just focused on getting to the break. And just as I was thinking about like how sharky this bit could be, I like turned to my left and just saw 10 feet away, just a fin just breach and just go like that under the water again. And I was like, oh my God. And I just froze for a sec like that with all my arms and like feet out of the water. I didn't quite have time to see if it was like a bent back fin, like a dolphin fin. I think it was, but I didn't quite see it, and I just saw a fin and I was just like so shocked. And I was like, oh my God, dolphins don't normally swim on their own. I was just like in the middle of this deep bit of water. There's nothing I could get to. So I just sort of like froze for a sec and then didn't see it again, and then just started just paddling again and just kind of like picked up the pace a bit and just focused straight on the thing, but just like super aware of like every like bit of splash and water, and I just kept paddling and was like really scared, but then just didn't see it again. So to Tasmania now, and Tasmania's cold, nutrient-rich waters are home to sharks like great whites, the seven gill and makos. But with a lower population and generally fewer people surfing, actual shark encounters are pretty rare. Shipstone Bluff, obviously the most famous wave from the state. You know, big, horrible monstrosity of the slab. It's pretty notorious for great whites down there. You know, deep water straight off the back of it, deep, dark, oily coloured water. There's definitely some big sharks down there. I'm sure if you speak to people who surf it regularly, they'll tell you some stories of when they've seen sharks. So yeah, generally speaking, there are sharks in Tasmania, but attacks and incidents are pretty rare. A combination of ecological, geographical and human behaviour are all contributing factors to the frequency of shark attacks in the country. Firstly, Australia's got an extensive coastline, boasting over 25,000 kilometres, most of it accessible and surfable, providing countless habitats and migration corridors for sharks. This alone increases the probability of encounters. There's warm and temperate waters, so the mixing of tropical northern waters and cool southern currents supports over 180 species of shark, including great whites, bull sharks and tiger sharks, the three species that are responsible for most attacks all over the world. High ocean use, so Australians are passionate ocean goers with surfing, swimming, spearfishing and diving all deeply embedded into the culture, leading to millions of hours spent by humans in shark-populated waters. There's also an abundance of prey, with seals, fish schools, dolphins, and even whale carcasses make coastal areas rich feeding grounds. Seasonal migrations of bait fish and tuna can also lead to sharks coming closer to shore. Then also improved detection and reporting. So, you know, it might seem like there are more sharks now, but because of technology like drones, tagging, sonar buoys, and aerial surveillance has led to better detection of shark presence, and in turn, better reporting of non-lethal encounters and sightings. So despite Australia's sharky reputation, it's one of the most proactive countries in shark prevention technology. And each state tailors its mitigation strategies. New South Wales combines smart drum lines, aerial surveillance, shark tagging and public alert systems. WA includes shark barriers, helicopter patrols, tagging, great white tracking and a real-time beach app. There are also shark sirens in WA at the most popular beaches. Queensland operates over 80 drum lines and nets across 85 plus beaches, and South Australia, after 2023, began investing in new deterrent technologies and increased funding after 3 fatal attacks in 2023. Australia is undoubtedly one of the sharkiest nations in the world. If you've got any crazy shark stories and you're happy to share them, please let me know down in the comments. If it's too harrowing or traumatic, please don't. Don't get me wrong, it's still pretty unlikely that you'll get attacked by a shark even in some of these sharky zones. But you know, every time we go surfing in sharky waters, we're entering their territory. It's just part of the game. Thanks for joining me on this video. I hope you found it really interesting. For now, it's goodbye from me, and I'll see you in the next episode.